All right. Had a number of numbery projects recently, and this is one of them. But first, I want to say I've been doing a project where I've input every single match ever played in a tournament into a spreadsheet and trying to get all the names right. That's tricky because people like Flair goes by, five different names over the course of Triple Triad. Seto goes by Seto, goes by Karama, Sasuke, Vivi, right? And there are a whole bunch. Delhi goes by, I think, three different names. There are a lot of players hard to hunt down, and obviously I wasn't there for all of them, so I'm just not going to know all the names that were used, and I'm going to catch some. I know Jadat is also King Kirko, right? But I'm not going to know that Mephiston is Sheeps, right? And some of these are going to matter more and matter less to kind of the rankings I like to do. But trying to put it in, trying to get the database with correct names for everyone, consistent names, and then I can run a bunch of tests on it. So I've been applying ELO, which is the rating system I tend to use, but because it's all automated, there's not the human error that means I'm going to get ratings a little off. And also by using the correct names more often, hopefully it's a little more accurate to what actually happened. But I wanted to do some testing of, are the rating predictions actually accurate? Because ELO ratings offer a win percentage for each opponent for every game that's played, right? It says, based on this rating difference, this player is 57%, the opponent's 43% to win. And do people it thinks are 57% actually win 57% of the time? And okay, if I took 57% exactly, the sample probably wouldn't be that big of games that thought were exactly 57%. So I made buckets, right? I took every game that it had someone was between 50 and 60% favorite. And I asked what was the win rate of the favorite. And the person over 50% in those matchups scored 54% almost exactly. Now you might think it should be 55%. Maybe it should. I think 54% though is pretty accurate because my guess would be it would have more games in the 50 to 55% range than in the 55 to 60% range. That might be wrong, but obviously 54% is very close for what you'd want it to say in that range, right? Because, you might say a rating system that spits out 55%, or say a rating system says player X should win 60% of the time, and they play 5 games, and that player wins all 5. One way to look at it would be, that was way wrong. You said 60% and it was 100%. And the other way to look at it would be, you picked them to win each game because 60% is always over 40. They did win each game. They got every game correct. And I think the second one is just obviously quite stupid. The first one is obviously correct. If you predict they should win 60% of the time and you have a decent sample, you should expect over time they win 60%. If they win 100%, then you putting it 60% is way wrong. But I also think sports fans tend to think in the other terms of like, someone predicted a series that this team would win 40% of the time, and they did in fact win it, and you go, wow, they're an idiot, right? They had it less than 50%, but actually a sample of 1 is never really enough to test a 40% thesis. It's not even close. So my point is, in games it thought were between 50 and 60%, it had the favorite winning 54%. That seems really good. In matches where the favorite was 60 to 70% to win by the system, it had the favorite winning 65.7%. That also seems really good, really close to the middle of the section. In the 70 to 80% range, it had the favorites winning 75.2% of the time. Again, really good. In the 80 to 90% range, it went weird. It had the favorites winning 81.5%. And I don't know what's going on there. The sample is certainly smaller, but that's low. That's not massively low. It's like, 3.5% off is not like that far off, but also worth noting that's the range it was most wrong on. 90 to 100% favorites, small sample, only 33 matches did it have a favorite that big, and the favorites won 97% of the time, right where you'd expect. Which is to say, I'm really happy with the early ELO checks because it seems like ELO is predicting matches at a pretty reasonable rate, right? It's identical when it says, this looks like a 60 5% advantage, what you're seeing is players given that advantage are winning about 65% of the time. That doesn't mean it's getting every matchup exactly right or anything like that. Players vary a lot in strength, right? So if you have someone like Jadat who plays incredibly and gets a really high rating, and then starts playing poorly and not focusing as much and drops down in rating, somewhere on the climb, he has the same rating as he had somewhere on the way back down, right? And, so it would see those are the same ratings, and it would predict him to perform the same at both those points in time, and he would not perform the same following up both those points in time. There's going to be things like that. But over a big sample, it seems it is basically getting the odds right, and that's really nice to see. Okay, on to what this video is actually about. We're going to talk about the best player in round 1 of single player open including tournaments. So who is the best round 1 performer of all time? So I'm going to do every round. I'm going to do round 1, round 2. I'm going to combine rounds 3 and 4. We're going to do quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. And we're going to look at who did the best in each round of tournament play. And I think this will be fun because you'll see some of the common names. But for instance, the winner of this series is not a player, I've highlighted in a lot of videos, right? And it's going to be, a little different than the normal lists. And that's nice. You will see the usual suspects. Of course, the people with the highest win rates will also have high win rates in many of the rounds, but not necessarily all of them. I excluded people from lists that had not made a round at least twice. So if someone made one finals and won their only finals, I won't be like, wow, they're 100%. They're the best finals performer of all time. I'll say we have a sample of one. We're going to ignore them. And Delial and Yojimbo are likely to appear on a lot of lists. They are the players with the most overall wins by a decent margin. So I am going to try to ignore them as much as possible. This, of course, helps me, but more than that, and more importantly, it spites them. So that's what really counts here. What else do we have to say? Define round 1. Round 1's the first round of a tournament. If someone gets an activity win or a bye, it does not count as if they played round 1. It's only, the round 1 column. And this is single player events only. I'm not including Rhinoa. I actually am working on a rating system based on Microsoft's TrueSkill ratings that they use for multiplayer games to rate them. Because ELO does not naturally work for multiplayer games, but TrueSkill does. So I may have a rating system that better accounts for events like Rhinoa, even though we don't know the individual results, that will still be able to credit and apportion credit at the team level. So that'll be nice. But that is perhaps a ways off. Are round 1 results meaningful? Probably not. Probably if someone performs really well in one round and badly in another, that's probably kind of random chance. There might be some effect to someone who's really good in later rounds, maybe takes tournaments more seriously when they get close to the goal, or maybe is really good against the best but not as consistent against weaker players. Maybe there's meaningful differences between good early and weak later. But I think in general, there's no particular reason round 1 would be especially meaningful. In general, your opponent is most randomized in round 1 of any round. On the other hand, if you got good immediately, you won't have as many round 1 exits. Players that were slower to get good probably, exited round 1 their first 5-6 tournaments. They're going to have a lot of round 1 exits. Their record here isn't going to look as good. So maybe what it will do best is identify players that jumped in and were immediately really good. Now, that may not mean they were the best. This isn't, I'm not saying, the god of round 1 is not the greatest player ever, unless, random chance happens to work out such that they're the same. But, it doesn't make you the greatest. But it might mean these are players who got good really quickly and stayed at least a pretty high level. It also might be a symbol of motivation. So I think there are things round 1 results can probably measure. So who's a contender? There are a bunch of people who never lost a round 1, but they didn't play big samples. Now, notably, as I said at the start in my intro that wasn't really about this, there are a lot of players who I'm still working on making sure I get all their names right. I think Clock gets a round 1 loss now that I learned about a different name for them. Lionheart might as well, because I don't know. C17, there was some possible name switching. So it's possible some people have fallen off this list, but these are basically people that, as far as I know right now, have never lost a round one. But up to 4 games, I don't think this is a big enough sample to really contend for the round one crown. So one way to look at this is who won the most round ones, and this is far and away Delial. He has won 31 round ones. Turds is in second with 21, Cookie and Koner at 19, Kamikaze at 18, Kaus and Slash at 17. So Delial is definitely a contender. He has won so many more than anyone else. I sadly cannot discount him immediately. The others are all kind of in contention, but will have to have pretty good win rates, because clearly there's a bunch of people in similar standing. And then there's the question of who has a lot of round one wins and still a very high win rate. Who's going to be our god of round one? So we got honorable mentions. Polo and Bloody Abyss went 6-1. This is really good. In later rounds, this might be good enough to get you in the top 5, but not here. Borchardt, Homer, and Met all went 8-2. Steve went 9-2. Nightwish went 10-2. MC 12-3. Kamikaze and Koner were some of the best of the winners of a lot of games at 18-5 and 19-5. Kaus and Slash both went 17-4. Yojimbo went 18-4. And I think the two closest contenders from this group was Sujiro at 12-2 and Delial at 31-7. Now, I'm not taking total wins because I think win percentage matters, right? If Kamikaze goes 18-5 and Steve goes 9-2, Steve has a better win rate, Kamikaze has more wins. Who would you consider better? And I sort of look at it as Steve would need to go 9-3 to match Kamikaze, which means he would basically need to put up another contender level 11 games in round one. And that's pretty unlikely, so I'd take the 18-5 as generally better, right? Is 18-5 or 17-4 better? Well, 17-4 is definitely better. Clearly this is a rate where going 1-1 in the next 2 round ones would be a poor showing. But what's better, Yojimbo's 18-4 or Delial's 31-7? Well, Yojimbo would need to go 13-3 to catch up to Delial, which is better than MC has gone, total. So that seems pretty tough. So I would definitely rate Delial's better than any of the things we've seen above it. 31-7 or 12-2. Sujiro would need to go 19-5. That's a Koner level performance. Again, that seems really hard. So actually, Delial probably deserves to be in my top 5. It seems to me that the 31-7, even though it's a lower win rate than a bunch of the others here, is probably just a better showing. But again, we're trying to cut Delial whenever possible, or we hate him. So he does not make my top 5. We have 5th, Great Sephiroth, 13-2. Now, if we think about that, 87%, that is higher than whatever percent 31-7 is. Is 13-2 actually better than Delial's 31-7? You'd have to go 18-4? 18-5, sorry. You'd have to put up a Kamikaze level performance? That just seems a lot to ask. Like, he's ahead of that right now, certainly. And, like, if anyone can do it, Great Sephiroth certainly in contention. But 18-5 is just such a lengthy amount of success. So I probably should have had Deli higher. But we won't. We'll ignore that. We'll stop comparing to Deli because we do not want him to win. Seto, 16-2, certainly deserves to be ahead of Great Sephiroth, and definitely deserves to be ahead of that numbskull Deli, who has a terrible record. Second and third, we had Dream Virus and Piggy Man with really incredible 14-1s. And this is actually the first one where I think, like, clearly should be ahead of Delial, right? Like, they'd need to go 17-4 to stay ahead of him. And, like, yes, that's really hard, but 14-1 is such a tremendous win rate. Yeah, I think that's good enough that they deserve second and third. And our winner, just barely ahead of them, but huge props to Dream Virus and Piggy, this is a tremendous achievement, is Gambit at 15-1. Now, I actually think when adjusting for different names, I think I found a second loss for him in round 1. So I think he actually drops behind Seto to 4th here. And Dream Virus and Piggy Man, I think, deserve to be tied for first. But, and actually, even if he doesn't drop that, Piggy Man is still playing, you know. I don't think I had updated this for Triad Wars 14, where he won his first round. So he might already be tied, depending on if I included that. Don't know if I did. I made this presentation a while ago. So I probably didn't. So Piggyman is probably already caught up. And given that I think Gambit will have a second loss added, I think Piggyman is our champion of round 1. And I was wondering if I should include multiple in a single video, like do round 2 as well. It's already gone 15 minutes. I was hoping these would be short. Let's do round 2 as well. So, huge congrats to Piggyman, Gambit, and Dream Virus. This is, I think, a really cool achievement. Let's move to the god of round 2. So, defining round 2, it's the second round. In the later years, there have been some 4-round tournaments, meaning the second round is also the quarterfinals. I did not count that as a quarterfinals. Round 2 to me does not feel like a quarterfinals. I counted it as round 2. So anytime the second round of a tournament was also an icon round, I just counted it as round 2. Per usual, activity results are excluded, just like last time. Alright, so we have the question. Are round 2 results meaningful? And here, I think probably less than round 1, actually. Higher's always better, but what does doing really well in round 2 specifically mean? I don't know. This is mostly trivia fun. For me, it's kind of curious. I have a ton of my activity wins are in round 2, not in round 1, which is where they tend to happen. So I've actually played more round 3s than I have round 2s. There are other players who came late enough they haven't played any round 3s at all for reasons we'll get to in that video. But I just thought that was curious that I've played very few round 2s. I just tend to get activity wins there. Or activity losses. I think actually my activity losses are all round 1. Is there anyone undefeated round 2? Who won the most? Who are the contenders? So C17, Doc Evil, Ulti, Ace, Bryce, and Karmazin were all undefeated in round 1 and remain undefeated in round 2. So this is a pretty cool list. Those are players undefeated in those, but small samples. Then Pogi, Shadow 12, Aurora, Focus, Soap, Sphere, and Spitfire. This may change as I got more details on some names some of these used. I also have as undefeated in round 2s, though all of them have at least a round 1 defeat. But again, these are small samples. These are not going to be my picks. If we want the most wins, it's again Delial with 26. Again, it's a pretty big margin to second place. Yojimbo's in second with 18, then Koner at 17, Seto at 16, Kamikaze and Turds at 15. But again, we want the combination of the two. We want a high win rate over a big sample. Who's got it all? Here's some honorable mentions. Seto at 16 and 5 is really impressive, but we'll get to some even higher win rates. How are some of these not in the top 5? Jesus. This must be a strong group. I'm confused how, I didn't delete some people from this list that are the top 5. Spoilers. Very well made video. So, pretend you can't see the bottom part. Akiyama 6-1 was up 7-1, Tezuka 8-1, Nightwish 9-1. All have really good records, but not high enough win totals. And then I was torn between some people. You can see some of them listed here. Maybe in order, maybe not. We'll see. And Great Sephiroth gets the honorable mention here at 13 and 2, which I think is definitely better than Kamikaze's 15 and 3. But it's hard to compare 13 and 2 and 26 and 7, right? You might think, okay, double 13 and 2, that's 26 and 4. He's well ahead of Delial. But 13 and 5 in the remaining games is just really hard to do. I think it's close. So this time, I put Delial on the list. I think maybe I should have had Delial on the list last time and not this time. I'm not sure. Either way, then I have Gafgarian, I have Chickeny, I have Yojimbo. These are crazy win rates. 18 and 2 is nuts. My god of round 2 is Bren, who I have at 7 and 0 in my records. Now, he would need to go 11 and 2 to match Yojimbo. 18 and 2 is, as said, just an insanely good record. But 7 and 0 is a pretty decent sample to be undefeated. And this is just the most we're going to see someone have played a round and remain undefeated for that round, I think. Unless we got someone with more in round 1, which I don't think we did, but now I'm blanking. And I thought that was a pretty cool feat. And so I wanted to give it first, and I did tell you we're going to be mean to Deli and Yojimbo whenever we can. So that's our god of round 2, and our opening gods are, to the surprise of some, probably, I think, either Piggy Man or Gambit, and Bren. And I think that's a cool start to this series, and I will now end this video and start recording the next ones. Who will be the god of rounds 3 and 4? And what is rounds 3 and 4? Are they separate? Are they one and the same? Find out next time on whatever I'm calling this video series. Why won't it stop recording? I pressed the button. Stop.